2016 was a year of fairy tales across the sporting world. Leicester City, the Chicago Cubs, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Cronulla Sharks and the Western Bulldogs. Heartwarming stories, every one of them. The Doggies produced one of the great achievements in VFL-AFL history, winning only their second premiership and their first in 62 years, against all the odds.
It's over. It's all over. The drought. The damn wall is busted.
So what does it feel like? It feels bloody fantastic. This is a dream come true.
Their day, their year.
As a teenager growing up in Werribee in the 1960s, Footscray was our nearest link to the Big Smoke, a somewhat exotic location that was classic working class, yet a city endowed with an AFL club, a bowling alley, and in a sign of things to come, a smattering of Asian food shops. Tonight, in this Fox Footy special, the Western Bulldogs against all odds, we look at the club that came back from death's door, almost gone in the late 1980s and mid-90s, champions in 2016. Enjoy. It is 171 days since the Western Bulldogs stunned the football world with arguably the best month of finals we've seen.
They have done what many people thought was impossible.
It has killed off Hawthorn. So Hawthorn era is over.
It's a night for the Dreamers. What a time to be alive.
Yet, wind back the clock to the end of 1989 and Kings at Whitten Oval suggested a rather bleak long-term future.
I believe it's time that they looked at the whole question of whether they should be trying to reduce the number of Melbourne clubs. I think this whole effort over the last couple of weeks has been a watershed in the history of the league, and I think they'll now have to rethink their whole strategy.
Proud Bulldogs president Peter Gordon still finds it difficult to believe the Doggies are premiers, given the club almost merged with Fitzroy in '89. Gordon's lifelong love affair with the Bulldogs started when he was in primary school in nearby Braybrook.
Grew up in West Footscray, went to school in Braybrook. My dad first took me to the Western Oval when I was 8 years old. My connection with the club is as a fan, as someone who loved the club, loved the heroes of it when I was a kid.
Who were your heroes?
I really loved Gary Dempsey. Not when he went to North, but I can remember being at the Western Oval when a young Bernie Quinlan had his first training run. And I remember this guy almost on the wing of what's now the Doug Hawkins wing, kicking for goal, albeit with the advantage of a breeze. But he must have kicked it 90 metres. I loved George Bissett. I loved watching him play.
Because of his stature?
Yeah, and his cheek, I guess. Yeah. Charlie Pagnocolo and George Bissett.
Charlie Pagnocolo, Werribee boy, Charlie.
Yeah. Loved going to watch those two play.
Whitten over to Bissett. Bissett into an open goal. He couldn't miss.
Maribyrnong Mayor Catherine Cumming is equally as effusive about her electorate.
When I was growing up in Footscray, I thought Footscray was the greatest place on this planet. You had Franco Cozzo saying North Melbourne and Footscray. You had Forges of Footscray, and then you had the Footscray Football Club.
Now, there's someone that bore a striking resemblance to you who was in the Bulldogs cheer squad on grand final day. That couldn't have been you, could it?
It possibly was, with my 5 children. And yes, it was fantastic to be in the cheer squad on grand final day.
What does it mean for the AFL specifically and for football in general, the win like the Doggies had? I mean, we're all saying it's how romantic it is and what brilliant theatre it was. What does it mean?
Well, I think it means for a number of clubs and a number of supporters, it gives hope. It means that teams that have been perennially unlucky, if you will, on field, who've got no money, who've got a smaller supporter base, who've battled, quite frankly, for 10 or 15 years, they can go and compete and now win. And I think it means for supporters you can win from outside the top 4. And I think it means that actually, you see what's happening to them off field now, that you can actually hope that you can, with success and with good management, you can go from being a smaller club to a bigger club. And I think all of those things are incredibly powerful for our supporter group.
Mick Malthouse has coached more VFL-AFL games than anyone else. It was the Bulldogs who took a punt on the 30-year-old to coach them back in January 1984. Mick, did you feel emotionally invested in the Bulldogs premiership win in 2016?
It's a really good question. I think nearly everyone you spoke to had some investment because they wanted to see a side come from outside the traditional sides that have been winning over the last few years.
Your early memories of the Whitten Oval, I'm talking physically now, talking arriving, you've been at St Kilda, you've been at Richmond, then you lob at the Western Oval.
Yeah, don't get caught up in how good Richmond was. I mean,
True.
You know, the rooms at Richmond and the ground at Richmond were no real difference except that it had the city smell as opposed to the Avatars and the Dunlop factory. You try to invite a player down to Footscray who was at another club, and they'd look out onto the ground and they'd see cricket training because Footscray were a pretty strong cricket side, so we couldn't get that until March or thereabouts until cricket finished. So you trained down the road, down Geelong Road. There was a square, and you'd say, "We'll come down there." Well, there was no watering. And you'd walk across it to get rid of any glass that had been smashed on the night before, and then you'd train and walk back. Well, how many players were impressed in that, do you reckon?
It was a two-part connection for you, wasn't it? They gave you starting coaching, you had 6 seasons there, and Luke Beveridge was part of your team at Collingwood.
What I saw in Luke was thoroughness and caring. And you put that with his playing days, but don't worry about the Collingwood, well, don't worry about the Hawthorn thing. Look at the St Bede's thing. He grew success because you do not jump from C to B to B to A and then win a premiership. It's never been done before. You've got to have something special.
Wallace, you can go again and go further. He doesn't. Beasley charges at it. Oh, that was great.
Team of the Century full forward Simon Beasley often had to wait months for his pay, but he still loves the doggies after his 8 years at the kennel.
It was a pretty tough scene, Footscray, because when I came there, the club were really struggling, and I got criticised in Perth heavily by a lot of my mates because, you know, they said, look, you just don't go to the Whitten Oval, it's no good there. I liked the scene. I loved the players. I loved the whole thing that Footscray represented, the fabric of Footscray, working man's club. It was just great.
Shoots for goal and he's put it through. 100 for the season. And he is absolutely delighted, and so are his teammates.
Wealthy long-time supporter and founder of Penfold Motors in his early 20s, Alan Johnston is one of several benefactors who have helped reduce the Bulldogs' debt from around $12 million to $2 million. Your mates say that even now, every time the Bulldogs' 2016 premiership win is talked about, you break into tears. Is that right?
Yeah, it is a bit that way, yeah. I can, yeah.
Now, I know you're very sensitive about the money issue because there is more than you involved doing this, but are you prepared to share with us what you might have contributed, say, in the year of 2016?
Look, I don't really want to talk about individuals at the Doggies because in the old days, the Doggies was full of individuals. Now it's all about team.
I know you don't want me to refer to you as rich, but you certainly are comfortable. But it wasn't always the case, was it?
No, not really, no.
Can you expand on that? What about the early days of marriage?
Yeah, well, I got married very young. I was married as a teenager. Still married to the same girl. Jesus. Come on, Alan.
That's okay.
Can I wipe my tears?
Yeah, that's okay,
Sorry,
mate.
guys. Bloody big sook, aren't I? Jesus. Crying out loud.
The Bulldogs won their first flag in 1954, 29 years after being admitted to the VFL. The 1954 flag might have been 62 years ago, but Premiership halfback flanker Jim Gallagher remembers the day well. When the Bulldogs celebrated the 2016 win for months. What happened in 54? Was there a civic reception or?
Oh, it sure was. After the game, we went to, I think, Hollyford Hotel. After that, we were taken to the town hall in Footscray, in Napier Street, where Charlie was presented with the mayoral robes and the key of the city of Footscray, which I don't know what he ever did with it. There was thousands of people there, as far as I could see. After that, we went to the ground where there was going to be free beer for everybody. It was advertised, and of course, all the supporters from all clubs were there. Consequently, couldn't get into the ground.
The players?
Players couldn't get into the ground.
I have lifelong memories of the 1961 Grand Final. My childhood hero was Bulldogs backman Bernie Lee, who played on Hawks full forward John Peck that day. As a starstruck teenager, I thought I had the best job in the world, carrying Bernie's bag to the footy every week. Bernie Lee, until 2016, your 1961 team was the Bulldogs' most recent grand final team. I'd broken my leg at footy training. I went to the footy with you, and you and Bob Spargo, who was playing in the centre that day, carried me to my seat.
Yes, because you were on the crutches. We were in the rooms, it was probably an hour before, and we still hadn't got changed. In those days, it was pretty leisurely. And so we got to get Mike up to his seat. So I said to Bob Spargo, Bob, we've got to take Mike up to his seat. He can't get up on the crutches. Oh, Spargo said, oh, no. So I said, yes, we got to.
Wow.
So off he went and carried you up to your seat.
So, Bernie, have you still got all those scrapbooks I used to keep for you so dutifully?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I've got one here.
Should be a foot thick, Bernie. Jeez, it doesn't look all that thick.
Michael Sheehan, Bernie Lee, scrapbook.
Oh, that's from 60 years ago.
Yes. There's one of the pages. You didn't get too much on it.
I thought I was a lot more fastidious than that.
You tried. You did a good job.
Thanks, Ben. Fast forward to 2016. You're at the MCG. You see the red, white and blues finally triumph.
Yeah.
It must have been an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, it was. I was a nervous wreck before the game. Terrible. It was just, I was beside myself.
Any tears?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
You did cry?
Yeah, I did after the game.
David Smorgan and I get on really well these days. Wasn't always that way.
You mentioned David Smorgan, and it's an interesting history you've both had because you've run the club, you two, for the last 28 years. I thought it was a lovely touch that, and I suspect it was you, that allowed Smorgan on the ground at siren time.
I promised him when I took over from him in 2012, that was something I wanted to do. I said, if ever the day comes, I want you to be there when we receive the cup. I want you on the field with me.
We've spoken about your predecessor, Peter. Why don't we say hello to him? Come in, David.
Hello, Peter. How are you?
Good to see you, my friend.
Nice seeing you.
Welcome to my home.
Thank you for inviting me.
Next time I'll invite you.
Gee, that wouldn't have been the case a few years ago, would it?
A few years ago it would have, yeah, sure.
It would have.
Maybe 1996 might have been a bit different, but probably had a rocky start with the transition in 1996, 1997. But
why so, Peter?
David maybe heard a few things about me and my group, and maybe we'd heard, a few things. I don't really know.
No, well, David doesn't agree with that assessment.
I don't think it was ever personal. I think it's a natural happening when one group leaves and another group comes in. And I don't think I ever said anything bad or personal against Peter Gordon or his board. But the very nature of it, Mike, is when you're trying to rebuild a club that have run out of steam for a whole number of reasons, and we're trying to do things differently to recreate and rebrand it and move it into another era, by implication, you're criticising the previous regime. And yet I've always had the highest respect for Peter and Irene Chatfield, all those that saved the club back in '89, the well-known story. But by 1996, it was again a different story and needed a new group to come in. So I think there are inferences that maybe there was implied criticism of me against Peter and his group for what they didn't do.
Did you sense the Gordon antipathy at the time?
No, I never sensed it, but there was not a relationship. I mean, Peter, he'd run out of steam, as you would expect from where he started from back in '89, and so he wasn't around the club. He wasn't seen around the club, and we were just going and doing what we thought was in the best interest of the new Western Bulldogs footy club. And then I think it was through Cam Rose, really, Peter, that he organised for us to get together. And once we met each other and started to understand each other, it's gone on fine since then. There's been no issue whatsoever.
Boys, I wonder what Ross Oakley would have made of grand final day.
Well, I'll tell you what, mate. You've sprung a surprise guest on me. Why don't we ask him? Come in, Ross.
Ross.
Peter. Welcome, buddy. You know this guy.
Hello, Ross.
Oh, don't I? Good.
How are you?
I'm
Pull up a
really,
chair.
really,
You
thank
two,
you so
you
much.
two have obviously forgotten the year 1989. Isn't he the anti-hero?
This is your story, mate.
No,
You
I'm
tell
just
it.
asking the questions.
Look, Ross and I didn't get off to the best of starts,
That's fair to say.
but that tends to characterise most of my personal relationships.
Good point. Was there an unhealthy obsession at City Hall about contracting the number of teams in the competition? This in retrospect.
Yeah. Look, the Blue Report, which was the 1985 report that was produced before I arrived, had in it the need for Melbourne clubs to merge. They didn't think that 10 clubs could exist in a market. Nowhere else in the world were there 10 professional football clubs in one market.
But there's no other game in the world like this game, too.
And that's the rider.
But in the mid-90s, as I got involved, it was a daily, if not weekly, pressure that there were too many clubs in Melbourne. And it was being fuelled by the media, it was fuelled by the AFL or certainly some commissioners. And I remember when I took over at the end of 96, it was something you lived with daily. You were always conscious there was going to be pressures to forces. If you couldn't pay your own wages, pay your own way, then go and have a look at elsewhere. And one of my first discussions was with Andrew Plimpton, who was then the president of St Kilda. And I think, Peter, you'd had a couple of previous discussions with Andrew, because when you look at the map of Melbourne, Port Phillip Bay, there's Footscray on one side and St Kilda on the other. And there was a natural merger. But I don't think St Kilda had anything to offer us, and we didn't have much to offer St Kilda, frankly.
Were you on talking terms? Were you on reasonable terms personally, you blokes, at the height of this debate? The dynamic between you two?
Let me go. I feel like we were. Yeah, I felt that came in with a maximum of distrust of Ross and all of his fellow commissioners. I spoke to you a little before about immaturity, and if I had my time over again, I would have sought to build more on those relationships, in particular with good guys like Peter Scanlon and Ross, than I did. And I felt we got to know each other and work more cooperatively together. But I reckon, I don't know if this is true for you, we've never had the discussion, but I was under enormous pressure from my constituents. If ever we invited him out there, you know, the accusations about me was that I was a traitor to the club.
Well, I know you've moved on because you've committed to print, haven't you?
Oh, well, I had to get my own back.
Well, there's your own back.
Oh, OK, yes.
You weren't popular, Ross. I don't know if you noticed, but you weren't popular out in the western suburbs.
Well, they made most of their money when they were trying to raise funds from those stickers.
Those stickers.
So, you know, you've got to give a bit of credit where it's due, haven't you, Peter?
Up Yours Oakley was one of the great branding lines.
Origin?
Yeah, no, it's probably time to confess.
Yours, was it?
That was me.
It was you?
Yep.
Another decision by Peter Gordon would have a profound influence on the club. Who'd have thought that a journeyman footballer by the name of Luke Beveridge would have such a huge impact on the battling Bulldogs? Luke Beveridge's coaching journey started here in Bayside Mentone when he turned his old school, St Bede's, into a powerhouse of the Victorian Amateur Football Association.
I wanted him as a player and then to learn off him as a coach too, because anyone who's been involved at the AFL level for 10 years is going to teach someone who's a novice amateur coach a bit of, just learn something from them, and that was my plan.
Beveridge should mark it. This is what you play the game for. Premierships.
Oh, he was a good, fun man. He was a really personable fella, an intelligent operator and a really deep thinker.
I think he just captures people's imaginations. So all the players come through the doors and he knows how to tap into them and get the best out of them.
Luke, we're back where it all started. How does it feel coming home?
Oh, it's always a great experience coming back into Brindisi Street and seeing the Oval again, especially tonight seeing the boys training all over again. You know, it's this is where the boys before the 2006 year really worked hard and started their climb.
It's a little more than 10 years ago when you're coaching in C grade in the Ammos. Do you need to pinch yourself or not?
Yeah, I probably do at times. It's been quite an incredible journey, I suppose. I've been really lucky. I've always had a great passion for the game, mainly playing it. But I've been so fortunate to experience some incredible times as a coach.
7 flags. You've contributed to 7 flags in 11 years. I mean, that takes the luck out of it, doesn't it? You can't keep fluking them.
Yeah, I suppose. But there's plenty of sliding doors moments along the way where you always think, well, you know, what happens if that went the other way? And the 2006 flag was probably the most significant, where, you know, we won a grand final by a point, coming from 47 points down. And when the scoreline's 21 goals 12 to 21 goals 11, you know, that could have gone either way.
Siren! Siren! The Tigers win!
C grade, B grade and A grade in successive years. Now, my ammo mates say that's just a monumental achievement.
Yeah, well, I suppose it is quite incredible. To win all 3 and to climb with a lot of change. And, I mean, those 3 years, there was only 8 boys who played in all 3 of those premierships. There's a couple who played in 2. At the time, it established that thought in my mind that it didn't matter how old you were. If you were good enough, you got a game.
Bulldogs legends Brad Johnson, Chris Grant and Rowan Smith know the heartache of failed premiership dreams. The Bulldogs lost preliminary finals in 1997, 98, 2008, 2009 and again in 2010. Jono, you're the club's longest-serving player. You're an ex-captain, you're a best and fairest winner, you're a leading goal kicker and you're a member of the team of the century, but no flag.
No, I know.
Does it burn?
Oh, no, not really. Look, at the end of the day, that was my time and it didn't come my way during my playing career and that's okay. It actually sits okay with me now that the club's got one, of course, and been able to witness one. But look, we gave everything that we possibly could, Mike, when I was playing myself as an individual, but as a team. And what we did, yeah, we made some prelim finals and just couldn't get over the line in those games. But I walk away comfortable knowing that we as a playing group gave everything for each year, from the start of pre-season right through until when we were knocked out in a final series. We couldn't have given any more.
You left in 2007. The Bulldogs were 13th then. Did you ever lose the faith? Did you ever think that this club was destined never to win a flag? Another one?
I wouldn't say I lost the faith, or not completely anyway. Certainly there's moments where you think, gee, you know, we're probably a fair way away, and we've got some work to do.
How many prelim finals for you? 3 or 4?
3.
3.
Yeah. And then watching, 08, 9 and 10.
Yeah.
Watched 85, so I watched a lot of losing prelim finals.
Late in 2014, the club was seen to be spiralling out of control. Coach Brendan McCartney was sacked, Captain Ryan Griffin departed for GWS, Brownlow medalist Adam Kearney headed to Windy Hill, Sean Higgins was bound for the Kangaroos, and CEO Simon Garlick also departed.
I concede that to the outside world that looked horrible. My view, by the time it became a public event and people were kicking the crap out of us, was that we still had the guts of a really, really strong list. We had the Boyd option unfolding for us, and to the extent that these problems had inured, and in my view, Brendan had been going well with the players until a particular point in the mid-season when there had been something had happened which had led to a catastrophic drop-off in there.
Do you know what that was?
In the relationship. I don't. I can take guesses, but I think it's unfair to speculate. But certainly not on a program as well watched as yours. But the idea that he was always a bad appointment, he's clearly got a lot of coaching skills. Something went wrong in the middle of the 2014 season, and it took management a little bit of time to cotton on, and it took the board until after the season. And once it did, there are 2 ways in which you can react, I guess. You can pretend it's not happening and try and paper over it, or you can lance the boil.
I remember talking to Ruffy on the phone, rang him as soon as I found out. We were speechless. We're like, what's going on to our club? I'd never seen it before with the coach, captain, CEO and stuff like that, and I still shake my head now. It was, it felt like things were getting out of control.
It was a pretty bad period of time for our footy club, obviously losing key people and things not going the way we would have liked them to go and planned for them to go. But I think what turned it around was the unity and the strength, firstly within the playing group and then across the whole footy club.
What turned it around?
Bevo.
Simple as that?
Simple. Bevo came in and was just an absolute breath of fresh air. He calmed everyone down. The way that he brought the group together, I've never seen someone bring a collective group, with whether it's coaches, players, staff, all together like he did. And he just made everyone feel safe and calm and knew that we were heading in the right direction.
Self-assessment's always a difficult exercise, but what makes you good at your job?
It is. It's hard.
It is difficult, I know.
Especially publicly.
Yeah.
What makes me good?
Well, you know your strengths. I mean, I've spoken to the boys that you coached at St Bede's, and the common theme is that your faith in your players and your evenness with them. You don't fluctuate emotionally with them.
Yeah, I think I don't necessarily get pent up on the wins and losses too much. I don't get anxious before games. I think our roles as key decision makers can be clouded through anxiety and having your priorities all wrong. And I think generally I've got mine in the right order.
You had to win 4 games to win the flag. At what point during September did you say to yourself, I think we can win the flag? Was there a moment?
I think after we won the first one, where you...
in Perth?
Yeah, in Perth. I liked the way... I mean, it wasn't necessarily the week off, but what the whole final series gave every team was an opportunity to recover. You're going into at least 7-day breaks and 8-day breaks, and everyone was afforded that. But we going to the final series, we hadn't beaten Geelong, and we didn't, at the end of it all, we still didn't beat Geelong, but the only other ones were GWS and Hawthorn, and we'd beaten everyone else, and including Sydney, so we felt like, against the side that won 17 and only dropped 5 by very narrow margins in the Swans, we felt like if we can beat them on their home turf, then we're as good a chance as anyone. And once it sort of came together in that fashion over at Patterson's or Subiaco, I think we all thought, if we can reproduce that again and again and again, we're a big show here.
Grand final day, Luke. I know the players win the game, but the coaches have a huge influence, obviously. Are there 1 or 2 decisions that you made in the coaching box that you think may have influenced the result?
We felt like we'd made good decisions on how to start the game, and unfortunately, when you look at the game in detail, some of the things we pride ourselves on in our defensive side we let ourselves down in. So just before half time, we put some things in place with Caleb and Lockie and some of our players who are up around the footy on the outside just to halt the opposition's momentum. And look, at that didn't last long because the half-time siren went. But there were 2 things that needed to happen at half-time. We needed to decide whether we stayed in that mode, which is a big decision. And whether we declared that to the opposition and they knew, and you can do that in certain ways or you can hide it in other ways. But the other thing we need to do is get some kind of control over Josh Kennedy. And so our midfield coaches in Joel Corey and Stephen King were quite influential in that decision-making process. And we changed our inside midfield personnel. Liam Picken went in there. He'd been on a wing. He did some work in there with...
But he didn't go to Kennedy, though, did he?
Well, he was supposed to at times, but what happened at the same time, we talked to Marcus and Tommy Liberatore about some things, and so Libba took it upon himself to spend a bit of time, and as did Marcus. And so we had a win-win in the end. Liam plays wing forward, but as an inside mid, he plays a lot more on the wing than he does forward, but as an inside mid, it meant we played him forward more. And so we had all this perfect storm, really, where we managed to... I mean, Josh was still an outstanding player, and he was right to the end, but he wasn't as influential as he was in the first half. Marcus came right into it, the quality of his game. Tom got better and had some negating influence, and Liam not only did some stuff on the wing, but he really bobbed up forward, especially in that last quarter. So that midfield reshuffle was probably the most significant thing that happened in the game.
Was there a pivotal moment in the grand final for you? On reflection, was there a period or a moment or an event that made you think that your blokes were going to get there?
The one for me that sort of epitomised our playing group was when JJ kicked that goal that was ultimately disallowed as touched on the line. And you could see the faces in the crowd, the Western Bulldogs faithful, all the supporters, fans who'd followed the team for so long, and some that hadn't but were fully invested. You could see the looks on their faces. It was like, well, talking about sliding doors moment, that was the time, really, is that going to happen? Is that a point?
The score is it behind, the ball's touched.
It's a massive call.
We're only 8 points up now, where it could have been 13, and at this stage of the game, that's enough to swing it in the Swans' favour. And I mean, we talk about, when you think about Leo Barry's mark at the end of 2005, wasn't it?
Against the West Coast. So you're likening it to that in its importance?
Just for us at that point in the game where the game in tight matches is sometimes won or lost on big momentum swings. That was a momentum swing where we'd gone from jubilation and almost that's the game to, they're still in it.
Yep.
And they would have gone from we're almost done here to we're still in it. So right at that point in time, the psychology of it was totally in the Swans' favour, but the actions of our players epitomised what they'd done for, not only this year, but maybe a lot of the previous year. And it didn't matter what was happening on the scoreboard and even the momentum of the game, they just hung in there.
It's one of those moments that they happen every game, and they're big moments in games, and I suppose it's your chance to have an impact. And I'll look back and I'll go, we had multiple I suppose, opportunities to have those moments. You look at Dale Morris's tackle, Tom Boyd's goal, and that was probably my moment where I thought it's time to have an impact. And
let's set the scene.
It was the moment where, as you say, JJ kicks the goal, and there were probably a few of us out there that thought that was the moment that we had the game almost sealed.
They can sniff it now, the Bulldogs. They feel this Sydney team breaking.
But heading back to the middle, the umpires came up and said it was going to be reviewed. Majority of the time when that happens, it's going to be a point. So we got together as a midfield group and we're just having a chat as we do and said, righto, let's set up for their kick-in. As you say, 5 or 6 minutes to go on the clock. So chances are they were going to try and go long down the middle, and as a big bloke, it's my job to go up and try and catch it when I can, and it was just one of those times that it stuck and allowed us to take a bit of time out of the game and get the ball back inside 50.
Straight down the middle, Naismith. Rough in. He's been excellent.
You mentioned Johannesson. If you would have been doing what you do in the home and away series and giving votes at the end of the game, who would have got your 3?
Oh, Jay would have been, really close. I think it's tight. I think, Tommy Boyd played an outstanding game. I just looked at the game in detail over the weekend before we've come back for training in the pre-season. So I've got a firmer understanding of the intricacies of the game, and some of the defenders in Easton and Dale, and they were quite incredible. But
I've just done the same exercise, and I have crushed on Dale Morris, but he would have nearly got my vote.
Yeah, he was outstanding. And Shane Biggs played a sensational game, but Marcus's impact, especially after half-time, and Liam and Pico. So, you don't want to single too many guys out in the grand final. But JJ, with his metres gained game, he didn't connect as well as he would have liked with his disposal, but he was a significant headache for the Swans, so he deserved the medal.
Who's your favourite player, Luke? We've all got him. It doesn't mean that you don't like the other 44 on your list, but who do you love for what he brings to the footy team?
I can't declare that, Mike. I really haven't got one.
Rubbish.
You can't have a favourite player.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't. Trevor Barker was when I was a kid, and then Peter Dacos. But, and I love Dougie Hawkins. I love playing with Dougie Hawkins, dancing Dougie.
So we can't go to the current crop?
No, you can't go to the current crop. I love them all equally.
Tell me the moment in your association with Beveridge, and he was the young coach and you knew little of him, when you said, I think we've made the right choice here. I think this is the bloke for us.
Sitting here, when I offered him the job.
What was the moment?
He needed to have the pedigree of having been successful at places like Hawthorn and Collingwood and St Bede's as he had been. He needed to demonstrate the strategic acumen to master and to implement a game plan. The things that impressed me about him that day, and I didn't research all of those things, I relied on the other people who are part of our team that gave me the results in relation to that. But these are a group of young players who had come out of a fairly disciplinary environment and, in my view, needed someone who could relate to them respectfully at an emotional level. And I felt like he could. And I reckon he's demonstrated that he could. And I reckon that another element of being a great coach, certainly for Luke or for coaches these days, and this is not being disrespectful of anyone else, is that you need to understand that it's about the players and not have tickets on yourself. And he is one of the more grounded grounded, humble, no tickets on yourself person that you could ever meet. You know, he's crikey's been a great appointment. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, he
any doubt about
you know, the single biggest reason we won the flag, I think.
Do you love him?
Yeah, not in any inappropriate way, but I do, yeah.
Peter, I know there were lots of things going through your mind grand final day, obviously, but you must have taken some real satisfaction out of the fact that Tommy Boyd asserted himself on the game in the second half.
Yeah, my memories of it are the first goal that he got was left foot boundary line.
Run around the left, he does, and nails it.
That was an extraordinary goal to kick. I was relieved because it kept us in the game. The second goal that he got close to half-time was after Sydney had kicked 4 in a row in really quick time. So it was a really important goal to keep us in touch. And the third goal that he got was, in my mind, the goal that iced the grand final. So much as I really liked Tom and much as I did feel later on a great sense of relief and some sense of vindication, I guess.
Tom Boyd's got it. Tom Boyd goes long. How will it bounce? The stadium holds its breath. It's a goal. And the western suburbs erupt.
Can you remember what you said? I'm sure you would have sought him out afterwards and might have had a special message just for him.
I said to him that I regretted not thinking through how much the more malicious elements of the football media might react to that deal, and I wish I had thought it through. It's odd to sort of be apologising to a guy that's, you know, been awarded a pretty decent contract, but I didn't foresee it.
You didn't foresee what?
The amount of vitriol that would come his way. In one sense, it's kind of fair for it to come our way and my way, but there's no 18-year-old in the country that wouldn't have taken that deal. So it was so unfair for, you know, for expressions to be bandied around like worst trade deal of the millennium and a disastrous recruiting move.
Did you feel that you'd been unfairly treated along the way?
I've always taken the stance and opinion that you know, ultimately it's people's prerogative how they want to you know, report on the footy, and you know, we know that we're subject to heavy scrutiny, but yeah, look, I think some people probably targeted me in an unfair way, but like I said, I don't hold any grudges about that. That's not something that I really stress about too much, and ultimately, as the past 3 years have gone on, I think more and more I've come to be able to, you know, reconcile with the fact that their opinions ultimately don't affect, you know, my performance.
Special hug from the president after the game?
Yeah.
He would have had a nice message for you, I suspect.
Yeah, me and Peter have been through a bit together. He's a great supporter of mine, and this journey sort of really started with us together, in 2014. And I think he's copped some unfair criticism as well. And I suppose we've been able to sort of feed off each other's energy. And what he's done for the club is, it's hard to put into words. And he's been such a great supporter of me and also the club over the years. And I was so happy for him on grand final day.
Another player to flourish under Beveridge is former tagger Liam Picken.
Picken, yes. Liam Picken nails it.
When did Liam Picken go from run-with player and lockdown player to this freewheeler who could take marks and kick goals?
I think as soon as Bevo come, he had a chat straight away and wanted to turn me into a, attacking midfielder and forward. So I think as soon as he got here, and it took a little while to get going. But once you get that confidence, it just sort of flowed from there.
Picken from behind. Picken from behind. What a mark! The littlest man at the threesome.
Lucky Bevo sort of come in and sort of probably kicked on my career a little bit.
You were officially the player of the finals for the Bulldogs. Which one did you think was your best performance of the four?
It's probably hard to say. It was, I suppose, grand final day. I'd have to say that one because it's probably the most important one, and sometimes you only get one chance at it.
When you look into the mirror as a premiership player, do you see yourself any differently? I mean, on that question of self-esteem, has it changed the view of the individual?
That's a good question, Mike. But a day after the grand final on the Sunday morning, having had a pretty big celebration and not feeling the best, my kids still got up at 7:30 and expected breakfast, and I still have to feed them, and I still have to change nappies and all those sorts of things. So I thought, well, is someone going to come and do this for us, or do we have to do it ourselves? But. I don't think it changes who you are as a person. I think it makes you feel pretty proud about what we've been able to achieve and, the obstacles we've overcome as a footy club to win one after so long. But it doesn't change you as a person. It doesn't make me any better or worse a football player.
Now, I'm going to out myself today. I've got a man crush on you, but apparently I'm not the only one. But I just love the way you play your footy. And I think that was... seen in the grand final. I mean, so many people say that their individual highlights involved you. I mean, the desperation that you've got. Were you always like that?
I always give everything that I've got every game. I know I'm not the most talented player. My skills aren't like you see with the other boys running around, but I will give it absolutely everything I've got every week. And whether it's putting your body on the line, whether it's when you think you can't go, you just keep on going. I pride and base my game on the little things, all those little 1%ers that a lot of people don't see that happened in the game. And the grand final, we all had our moments throughout the grand final, and there were so many of those moments. I've watched the game back once with my wife at home, and I was seeing things that we were doing that were just incredible. Bigsy in the forward half, 5-6 efforts to lock the ball in. Tom Boyd stepping up. You got Boydie, Matty Boyd going back with the flight. Just the boys, everyone had their moment, and they all took their moment.
In front, Franklin, knocked away by Morris. Naismith sold a teammate into trouble. Quick thinking by Kennedy, and Franklin was run down.
Of all the things that you did, the significant moments for you in the grand final, is there one that you're particularly proud of?
It would have to be the tackle on Buddy. I remember the ball popping out to him, and he's a left footer, and it was perfect for a left footer arc, and there was no one behind him.
Outside, yeah.
So I thought I was going to have a chase down the wing on my hands if he took off, like the Cale Hooker chase, and I thought that was coming. So I've just gone after him, but he didn't take off, and whether that. I didn't realise he hurt his ankle in the first quarter, and whether that had something to do with him not being as explosive maybe as he normally is.
100-metre sprint, Franklin versus Morris. What's the margin?
He can get me by 20, 30 metres easy.
Your trademark is to just back into packs. Given that condition and given you're going to get whacked in the back, Did it ever cross your mind that you might need to be a bit more careful out there?
Yeah, the last game of the year against Freo, I went to block for a teammate and just got a hit in my lower back. I think it was the L2, L3 transverse process fractures. I thought maybe my finals were done there and then.
Easton Wood, you missed round 23 with an ankle injury. 5 weeks later, you're holding up the Premiership Cup on the MCG. You said surreal before. It must feel that way.
It's totally surreal. You know, the way that you know, the season finished, we probably didn't finish that well, and there was lots of question marks going into that finals campaign. But 5 guys come back into that elimination final, and if we didn't have that, we might not have had those players in. I don't know. I certainly wouldn't have been in there.
After the break, I asked key Bulldogs whether the 2016 Grand Final win was a flash in the pan, or are they on the cusp of something special? League football is littered with teams who bob up to win the flag only to miss the finals the following year. Over the summer, rival coaches will have spent hour after hour dissecting the Dogs' game plan. Now they are the hunted. Are they prepared? You're about to embark on the title defence. What is worrying you? What's in your gut, your biggest concern going into 2017?
Probably whether we'll be prepared enough. We're not used to starting this late, and that can be a good thing, but it means you're sorer closer to the season. You know, we've had some boys who've come out of the year, who've given their all, and it's going to take them a while to get back up to speed. So my main concern is that we time our run into round 1 as fit as we can be.
And ready.
And ready. We can't afford to stagnate in any way, shape or form. And we kind of hope that competition for spots that has been there all the time, but will definitely resurface with some of the boys who weren't able to play in either grand final, Footscray or Western Bulldogs, that will drive the boys to make sure that they cement their spots.
You've been hunting, certainly for the last 2 years. This year, 2017, you're the hunted. What are you expecting?
I feel like also it's nice for that, for something new. We've never been hunted before. That obviously comes with the territory when you win it. But for us, we're still on our journey. I don't know what we're capable of long term with this group, but I feel like we're hitting our stride, and I still feel like there's a lot more to go. And I'm excited to go on that journey and see what that is.
Look, that was one of the contributing factors to playing on this year was to experience what I've envied in so many other teams over a long career. You look at Hawthorn and Geelong and those teams who have had enormous success, and you wanted to be them. You wanted to be the premiers for the year, and you wanted to experience what that's like. And I'm really excited about what the competition thinks about us and how they're going to come after us. We can't back away from that. We've got to really embrace that and step up to the challenge. And I know that our boys have come back, and there's certainly not a lack of motivation in how we're training and how the boys have returned for pre-season 2017. So I'm really excited about the concept of being the hunted this year.
You know, it's going to be exciting this year. There's so many challenges. We probably don't have the same side. So obviously we're really hungry and looking forward to this year. And whatever comes, hopefully we step up and, take on the challenge.
You've had thousands of people congratulate you, and most of them say they can die happy or their parents can or whatever. Do you ever tire of that?
Nah, not at all. There's not many jobs like ours where people are genuinely happy and excited to come and talk to you about what you do. I'll never get tired of that. I get people coming up just to say thank you for the grand final, or talk about the game, or to get a photo or something, and I love it. I reckon it's the best job in the world, and everything that comes with it is it's great.
To make that elimination final in our first year of footy was a good effort, and a year later we win the premiership. Crazy, isn't it? It's crazy.
Is there one moment from grand final day that will endure and stay with you forever?
The one that sticks with me is second quarter. I think we got about between 14 and 16 points up in the second quarter. And I turned to my son and he looks up at me and a tear rolled down his eye. That was probably the main moment.
So that was
for
him
me.
sensing that you could win the flag.
Yeah, that's it. Understanding a little bit of what I'd been through, understanding the history of the football club and how long it had been. For him to grasp that and then see that, it was nice.
One of the great sporting days of my life. There's no doubt about that, because you know of so many stories in there, and the energy and the atmosphere and the yearning of that Bulldogs crowd was something else. And Sydney are a huge club now, but they've had significant recent success. So you've got a big, powerful club against this underdog coming from 7th, and there was an energy there and a physicality about that game and just an emotion and a story that ended up playing out over whatever it was, 2.5, 3 hours. That was pretty intoxicating.
I do think it's one of the great sporting stories in Australia.
We agreed on that.
In Australia's history.
Go Doggies!
This was more than just a football victory. This was more than just a great thing for a suburb that's been through the odd hard time. This was a really profound moment in the lives of so many people.
In 2017, the eyes of the football world will be on the Bulldogs and how they adapt to suddenly being the hunted. But for a boy from the western suburbs who is now in his 71st year, I will never forget their efforts last year when they overcame all odds.
I just love him. I love him.
This has been a Fox Footy production, part of the Fox Sports Network.